G'day, it's Pete the Polymath. Here again to entertain you, educate you and inspire you to bring about the necessary changes in your life so that the future may see you as one of the heroes of this time. Someone who broke the mould, who decided that normal wasn't good enough anymore. Now today I thought I might talk about violence. Now violence, I will relate to my personal experience later on, and it's a great story and I want you to listen to the end. But in general, from anthropology and also looking at the archaeology record, humans have been violent to each other for as long as there have been primates, perhaps. We certainly know that there's been a lot of violence between chimpanzees. Bonobos not so much because they tend to make love, not war. But chimpanzees, and they have a particular kind of a war. And what they do is, if they want to battle with the next group, they patrol the borders and then locate some individual male by themselves. There's a male-to-male kind of wars generally. And if there are 4 of them and only one of their enemy, then they'll attack and kill and eat. So it's not a matter of symmetrical war for them. It's a matter of, I'll only commit myself to this danger of violence if I'm assured that I will win. Now, when it comes to humans, we know there have been certain kinds of battles in the past. We've got archaeological record of those, and the fossil record of those. We can find graves of where there have been obvious signs of brute force injuries to the body and the skull. We can find stone arrowheads and embedded in ribs and in spine and in skull. We can find fractures where it obviously has been caused by some enormous club, or later on the use of something like a sword. And so even in those ancient times, it wasn't there was very little reason. Like if your tribe was say 300 or 400 people, and you had like 100 fit and healthy adult males, or you can also have females, but like they're a different category and have different kind of importance in a tribe, different risk factor. But if you could summon up, say, 100 soldiers, 100 warriors, then you could defeat your enemies quite easily. The only way they could stop themselves from being defeated in such a way, these raiding parties that just slaughtered anyone that got in their way, was if they too were prepared to bring up their own army that could battle them, still sticks and stones as weapons against sticks and stones of their opposition. So there could be deaths, there could be serious injuries, but chances are there'd be a lot of people who would just limp off the battlefield and go back to building a normal life again. And so what had happened was if you were a warring kingdom, then you had to be prepared to win. You couldn't be prepared to lose. You had to commit so much to the art of war, and eventually it wasn't good enough for just ordinary people to just say take up arms and attack your enemy or defend the enemy that's rampaging and going to try and kill you all. There was a need to bring about like the professional army. So the need to train up your warriors so that they were an elite class, just like you had potters and farmers and accountants and high priests. You had a class of people who were trained in the use of weaponry, trained in the use of the tactics of killing. Anyway, And that sort of ended up, you didn't want to wipe out like half of your own sort of fit and healthy adults for the sake of a war, because you weren't going to survive. Like, you just reduced your capacity to provide what was needed to survive. So war has always been a risky thing, and violence has always been a risky thing, and getting other people to do your fighting for you is a risky thing. So the kings of 500 years ago or so, there'd be some insult, and they would say, right, I'm going to call an army and I'm going to demand like you retreat or you apologise, or I'm just going to kill a lot of you because I'm upset, and I've got to show to my people that I can't be messed with, and I've got to show my other enemies that you don't mess with me. And then we had the emergence of, like, he went from copper to bronze and to iron, and then to gunpowder and the siege weaponry, and the art of war became a sophisticated thing. It wasn't just we learned how to build the amazing temples and cathedrals, but we also needed to know how to build the walls that would defend ourselves from attack. And if we were attacked, how to use those walls to cast things down upon our enemies. It really pissed me off with Game of Thrones when it was on, and you got this massive wall, the ice wall or whatever it was, and there's these enormous armies attacking, and people on the top of this massive wall were being killed by arrows shot by these people all the way down there on the ground. And I've been a compound bowist. I'll train myself up for the martial art aspect of it. The art of being able to kill, not necessarily wanting to, but just the confidence that if need be, I would not freak out. I could take certain measures. Anyway, so these guys on the top of the wall with the wall, and an arrow comes along and it kills them. Now, one of the things that me and my mate were doing when we were shooting our arrows, we were shooting at a target that was 320 meters away. It would take 17 seconds for the arrow to reach its mark. And when it got to the very top of this arc, or when it left the bow, it was going about 300 kilometres an hour. And when it reached the top, like the top of that ice wall in Game of Thrones, it was probably only going about like 30 or 40 kilometres an hour. And it might give you a nasty scratch, it's a little flesh wound, but it's not going to pierce any armour, it's not going to pierce any bone, and it could be sort of knocked out of the air almost with your hand. Anyway, so now we're hurling these missiles at each other that each one is worth millions of dollars. And the means by which you protect yourselves from those is to shoot other missiles that are worth millions of dollars. Like, oh, come on. It goes nowhere. We're just throwing money at each other. If we just stopped throwing money at each other, we'd both be prosperous. We would both be happy. We wouldn't have to deal with all these ruined people that come home from war. Ruined physically, or not home at all. Or ruined mentally. Because to train some peace-loving person into a ruthless killer, and then to bring them back into mainstream society, like, some people just can't cope with that. Their brains just can't sort of switch back. And every time a loud noise is heard, they sort of freak out, and the surge of adrenaline and the drop and prepare all kicks in, and it ruins lives, ruins relationships. It ruins the capacity to be a father. It ruins the capacity to be a husband or a wife or anything else. Because again, with the raw emotion of war. Okay, onto my story. I'll tell you about the last battle that I ever had, and it was a very significant one. And it all began when I was just 17. And it was in February of 1977, and I know it very well because I was just about, like the week after, I was going to be one of 104 students that would be at doing Form 6 or Year 12. And I would only know one other person amongst all those. And so I was going to have to make a good impression, and I'd have to make some friends and stuff, and very, very important. Anyway, as usual on a Saturday night, went out with my mates, and we got a little bit pissed, a little drunk, but not too much, because we want to have a good time. We don't want to just wipe ourselves out. But there was one other character with us who was the younger brother of someone else. We knew from school. I mean, he was hanging around, and it wasn't any trouble to us. But as he walked through a car park, he made a particular comment, and it was a derogatory comment about the Golden Square Football Club, the team. And in that car park, there was a gang of hooligans, and they were looking for an excuse to beat someone up. Anyway, this guy, he comes over to me, and he accused me of making that remark, and I denied it, because Golden Square was actually the football club that I barracked for, not that I was much of a fan. And I was 6 foot tall. I'd been like, I wasn't perhaps fully grown then, and I was 17. I was very, very strong. And this guy who was angry and confronting me was a jockey. He was actually a trained jockey, but he was also a trained boxer, because he had what we called small man syndrome. And we're talking about a time when there was a lot of violence in society. There were pub brawls all the time, and in my school, it's like there was always a fight. Every day there'd be a fight. But when I first went to that school, every recess, like 3 times a day, there would be at least one fight. And fighting was just part of the culture we came from, and it was being phased out. We were becoming sort of a better quality society. And anyway, I had this guy, and I wasn't really taking him seriously, because it obviously wasn't serious as far as I was concerned. That this guy who was 10 centimetres shorter than me, and I was 172 kilos, and this guy was probably just pushing 50 because of his profession and stuff. And I wasn't even looking at him. And I was laughing at the situation, really, because it wasn't even my remark that caused him to become upset. And suddenly I was on the ground with my face against the tarmac, and my friends around me trying to pick me up. And I was completely helpless. I couldn't move my arms and legs. And I sort of mumbled, like, leave me alone, because I just wanted to lie down and gain my senses, because I'd been king hit when I wasn't even looking, when I was totally, completely unprepared. And that was a cruel thing to ever happen to any person. And there have been many people who have been thrown in jail for 10 years for homicide, accidental homicide, some category of killing because of that. I've met them. Anyway, so they eventually got me on my feet, and I realised that there was blood from all these wounds around my nose and above on my eyebrow and my forehead and down the side of my face and stuff. My entire sort of right eye was ringed by scabs. When I went to my school to meet the classes that I would then spend a year with. And on that night of that horror, my friends were saying, maybe we should counterattack. We could mount some way of, we could do something. We could fight you for your honour. We could do this. And I said, no, don't do it. Like, we could never win. And basically I'm saying, like, we are not fighters. We are intellectuals. These other kids, like, they aren't. They live a different life. They are the warriors, the street warriors, and we've got no chance against them. Anyway, so I did find out the name of my attacker. His name was Harbridge. Now, it's not a very common name, and so that name stuck in my mind, as well as the image of his face and his physique. I would recognise him, and perhaps there'd be one time when I could exact my revenge upon him. My honour returned. We know if you've been an adolescent, you know the power, the strength that you feel you have, the violence that you could commit for a worthy cause. And that's the reason why they recruit the young to fight the wars, because of that enthusiasm and commitment, the honour. Anyway, there was a time about 10 months later, and a friend and I were walking along a darkened road at night. We'd had a few drinks, and the headlights of a car shone on us. And I decided I'd have a bit of a fun, and I pretended that we're in the limelight, and that I did a bit of a side shuffle with my feet. I was doing a little dance as if I was some actor on a stage, and I thought this would be hilarious for my friend because I was the joker, you know. And I thought that the people in that car would think, "Oh, look at that! Isn't it so funny and amazing that they've given us this performance?" The car slowed down as it went past us, stopped, turned around, and with its headlights shining on us, 5 thugs emerged. And my friend, he realised there was going to be trouble, and he ran off. And I forget whether he actually was in a fight, but he broke his front tooth. And that really was a bit of a shame for him. That bugged him for years, that tooth that was damaged. It cost him a lot of money eventually. But I decided that once I saw that who came out of that car, saw that it was my arch enemy, Harbridge, that I would not only stand my ground, I would teach him a lesson he would not forget. And so he came over to me and he started hassling me, started sort of pushing, because it's very hard to fight someone without raising up your own justification, your own anger. And his other thugs, like 2 of them were racing after Phil, trying to hunt him down. And I had the other 3, and they were sort of surrounding me and trying to attack me from behind. And I'm trying to sort of shame them into not interfering with what, well, was going to be a fair fight. Like a jockey against a fully grown man. But retribution was on my mind, and so after provocation, I tried to punch him in the face with my right fist. And he, being a blocker, a fighter, he blocked. I tried again. He blocked again, and he laughed and said, "Oh, we've got a lively one here." And then I did something that he would never forget. Always know your enemy, or at least don't underestimate your enemy. I was ambidextrous. And I thought, well, he knows how to block a right. Does he know how to block a left? No, he did not. And my punch hit him square in the middle of the face. The blood streamed down his face, and he was shocked and horrified, and the whole group had to retreat in shame and in horror that their leader had been defeated in battle. Meanwhile, I had also suffered the wound. There's a bone just in this part of the hand here. And we in radiography, we call it the fighter's fracture. I never had it x-rayed, but later on I did have reason to have it x-rayed, and I could feel it. I could feel the lump in the bone as it healed, and it wasn't going to cause any deformity of my hand. And so I lived with that, and it got better, and then it just became this story that I would be able to tell. And then, wouldn't you know it, 30 years later, I just happened to be doing a locum, like a work period in Bendigo itself. And I pick up this piece of paper that has the request for me to perform an x-ray procedure on a person. And I look at the name and it says Harbridge. And my eyes widen and my jaw drops. Can this be the one? He is certainly of the age. He is about 2 or 3 years older than me. Perhaps, maybe. Anyway, I call him in from the waiting room, and when I see him, I think, this is him. It has to be him. That's his physique. I remember his face, even with the 30 years added to it. And it wasn't a big procedure. I had to sort of conduct and produce his x-rays, and as I x-rayed him, I said, you were the jockey, weren't you? And I saw the pride in his face. Someone must have been a fan of his, recognised his tradition on the track, as a trainer, perhaps as a jockey itself, as a personality. And I said, when I was in 1977, I broke my fist on your face. And I looked at his face, and his nose was not straight. It had the characteristics of bump on his nose. And he then was forced to recognise me. And it was an emotional experience for both of us, because he had moved on, and he apologised for his youthful exuberance and overconfidence, and how I had taught him a lesson, and that he was never the fighter after that, because well, you can't be after you've been defeated. Your gang has seen you defeated, your reputation ruined. And me, like that was the last time I ever fought. And I'd tell people, like, if you're prepared to fight, you must be prepared to lose. You must even be prepared to die. And now we must consider this analogy and how it relates to the art of war and what is happening in Ukraine and in Iran, and in the undocumented wars of Africa, and in the oppressed minorities in various countries. Some of these drawn by political reasons, and some by religious, some by racial, and some by colonial. But we try and find the difference, the reason why we need to go to war. And every time we have to believe that we will be the winners. So in my description for this video, I've added an unusual video. Well, there's 2 unusual videos. Well, 4. There's 4, and 2 of them are purely for entertainment purposes, because I want to be able to give you something to laugh at and to be amazed by. And 2 of them have to do with the art of war. And one of them is a panel of experts from America and England discussing the crisis in Iran and also Russia, Ukraine, and bringing in other wars like comparing the Straits of Hormuz with the Dardanelles and the rise of the legend of the Anzacs. The hero worship of Churchill and our historical regurgitation and reimagination of what he was doing as some bumbling idiot who could not take advice from people who were below his class. And the other one has to do with the art of war, is an AI depiction of the Iranian situation. So it's all Lego. It's a Lego war of destruction as seen from the perspective of the Iranians. No, yes, not the Ukrainians, the Iranians. And it's brutal. It's comedic at some particular level. It's horrific, and yet it's toys. Toys are us. Anyway, thanks for listening through to the end, and I hope I've made it worthwhile. And do your usual thing of thinking deeply about this and making comments that are either your expression, your reaction, your contribution in some way, and add to other people's contributions. Make it a dialogue, patting people on the back, and even sort of telling people that I think you might have it wrong there, or you haven't thought deeply enough about this, or whatever it is that you want to contribute. Like, it's rewarding to be involved in these kinds of things, because the whole world is at stake. The entire future of humanity is at stake. The entire destiny of the biosphere is at stake. We're not playing some game here. Anyway, that's my words of wisdom from Pete the Polymath. Another day down, and I hope you return tomorrow for some more. Thank you, and goodbye.